All right, folks, we made it to the weekend, and it should be an interesting weekend weather-wise. We all know by now there is a winter storm that will be affecting a large part of the country. In Mississippi, I think it's mostly going to be an ice storm when we're talking about winter weather, and it already really has begun. Take a look to the north of us. We have got icy weather starting over parts of the Delta, let's say from south of Memphis all the way down to about the Cleveland and the Greenville area. If it hasn't reached the ground already, it will soon, certainly I think during the overnight hours. So hopefully you've got all the preparation done. We've been saying all week long that we need to get ready for this while the weather was pretty mild in terms of getting enough food, water, blankets, batteries, all of that stuff, wrapping pipes before the frigid air gets here and we stay below freezing for about 3 days. Some parts of the state could be below freezing for more than 4 days. Actually, up in the Delta, I think that is likely. So not a good situation, but we got to deal with it. We got to get through it. So let's go ahead and talk about it. What's happening is Arctic air is moving in from the north. There's going to be a shallow layer of cold air at the surface. Meanwhile, with the storm moving in from the west, moisture from that storm will override the cold air. So in Mississippi, this is going to be falling in the form of rain or freezing rain, where the rain falls and the temperature is freezing at the surface. It's going to freeze on contact on elevated surfaces like bridges and overpasses, but not just that, outdoor staircases and driveways, anything that can get to freezing, it's going to glaze over. It's going to ice over with that rain coming down if the temperature is at freezing at the surface. Now, the farther north you go, the layer of freezing air is going to be thicker, and the freezing rain is going to transition into sleet and then to snow. We might see a little sleet. I just don't think we're going to see much of anything in the way of snow. All that's going to be to the north of us. There's going to be some heavy snow, some big accumulations across Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and parts of the Midwest, but that's for them. For us, it's going to be either rain, where temperatures are above freezing, or freezing rain, where it's below freezing, and that's mostly going to be in the Delta and in West Mississippi. So let's take a look at the temperature right now. Continues to drop during the day today. We were in the 50s all day, but this evening it's been steadily dropping. Right now we're at 44 degrees, and ultimately by tomorrow morning we are going to be in the 30s. But importantly, we're going to be in the mid-30s. All right, current temperatures right now at the 11 o'clock hour, it's already in the 30s in places like Rolling Fork and Yazoo City and Durant. And we do see some of that moisture beginning to come in from the west. And if you look to the north of us, it's painted in already as sleet and freezing rain. And look at the surface temperatures. They are below freezing. Now, here's the deal. Dew points in this area, I checked the observations, dew points are in the low 20s. So there's a difference between the actual temperature and the dew point, which means the atmosphere hasn't moistened up enough yet for this rain to hit the ground. That process is going to continue over the next couple of hours. As the moisture keeps coming in, the atmosphere will moisten up, and as the rain falls through the relatively dry air, there's going to be a process called evaporative cooling that's actually going to bring the temperature down even more. So right now we're in the upper 20s. I think by tomorrow morning we're most likely going to be at least in the mid-20s, if not even lower. Bottom line is, once we fall to freezing in the Delta, we're not going to get above freezing for the entirety of the weekend. All day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday, and a good part of Tuesday we're going to be below freezing. So any kind of rain or moisture that comes in, it eventually is going to either freeze on contact or we're going to see a little bit of sleet mixed in. That's why we're expecting significant ice accumulations in this area. Now, that's mostly to the north of us for now, but eventually that freezing line is going to drop southward as we get into Sunday. Most of the day Saturday, though, at least in the Jackson area, I think we're going to stay just above freezing, which is good for us because that just means it's going to be a cold rain. It won't be pleasant, but we'd rather have a cold rain than freezing rain. So here's a look at the entire storm, and actually it's not the entire storm. You have to go all the way back here. Look, the storm energy is still producing rain back here over parts of, let's say, Vegas and Arizona and New Mexico, and it's drawing up all that moisture from the south, and that moisture again is overrunning the cold air at the surface, so it transitions from rain to the south to freezing rain to sleet. That's the purple, and then of course the white is snow, and it's heavy snow. You can imagine what it's going to be like in the Ozarks it would be a pretty situation if you didn't have to worry about traveling in it. If you could just hunker down and enjoy the weekend in the Ozarks, I'm sure it would be beautiful there. But we have to deal with it in central Mississippi, and we're going to be dealing with the least desirable winter weather, which of course is ice. All right, so here's a look at our short-range, higher resolution model. It's our in-house model called the graph model, and this is going to give you a really good picture about what's going to happen. We already mentioned about the delta staying below freezing for this entire time. On the flip side of that, the Pine Belt will stay above freezing for the entire time. At one point, there's even going to be a surge of warm air Sunday into the Pine Belt. They could actually bump up into the 60s there. So no worries about winter weather for most of the weekend in the Pine Belt. The big question mark is, of course, is where's the freezing line going to set up? And it's going to be somewhere across central Mississippi. Now, we are expecting in Jackson for it to be just above freezing for much of the day. Saturday, look at the temperature here. This is noon Saturday at 35 degrees. And then we're at 36, then we're at 37, which is great. We're above freezing, cold rain. Ultimately, that's going to change, though. By Sunday morning at about sunrise, the temperature for us drops to the freezing mark. And I think for the rest of the storm, while it's coming through, we are going to be at or below freezing with a short window of getting some icing here all the way down through southwestern Mississippi. Now, the storm is going to be in the process of getting out of here during the day Sunday, but I don't think that the rain is going to taper off from west to east until about midday on your Sunday, which means from about sunrise Sunday to about 11, 12 o'clock Sunday, that's the window we're looking at for icing from the metro down through the southern part of the state. Now, once we get to the afternoon, the rain shifts to the east, so we're drying up, and then the temperature does bump back up above freezing. So after that, I think we're done, but at this point, I think there's going to be a lot of ice around, especially in the Delta, where temperatures, again, the whole time will be below freezing. And then after the rain moves through, that's the cold front that's moving through. That's going to draw down even colder air, and that's going to spread even down into the Pine Belt. But at that point, the precipitation's done. It's just going to be a temperature forecast as we head into early next week, and we're talking about dangerously cold temperatures, especially Monday and Tuesday mornings. So our ice accumulation is going to be heaviest north of the Big Black River. South of there, the totals are going to be a little bit less, but they're still going to be significant. Any ice is not good because it only takes a little bit to create a lot of problems on those elevated surfaces, and for traveling, it makes it very tricky. Really, 1/10 of an inch of ice is all you need, and take a look at what we're looking at. 1/4 of an inch right here in Jackson, down to about 1/3 of an inch through our southwestern river counties, and possibly up to 1/10 of an inch down Interstate 55, all the way down to about Macomb and Pike County. Again, that would create a lot of problems on the roadways. And then farther to the north, where we have these higher ice totals in places like Issaquena, Sharkey, and Humphreys counties, you can see 1/2 inch of ice or more. When you're talking about that much ice, it's so heavy that it's going to break tree limbs and possibly snap power lines. That's going to mean power outages, and that means these folks are going to be stuck in icy conditions without power for about a good 4 days through about Tuesday of next week, which is a horrible situation. We've lived through it before in the Delta. It's just not something that we ever really want to see again, but here we are. So your ice storm warning for the purple area for much of central and north Louisiana, and now for a good portion of Mississippi. The western part of the state, the metro, all of the Delta, and through all of North Mississippi. The criteria for an ice storm warning is that the National Weather Service has to be confident that we're going to get at least 1/4 of an inch of ice accumulation, whether that's freezing rain or a freezing rain sleet mix. Because the confidence is high of that now, they've extended it farther to the east to include Adams, Jefferson, Franklin, Copiah, Hinds, Rankin, Madison, Leake, and Attala counties, whereas before it was just for the 6 counties north of the Big Black River. And this is going to be in effect until Sunday evening, until 9 p.m. on your Sunday. So here's the track of the storm. Cold air in place. The area of low pressure tracks down to the south of us, spreading that rain over the cold air. And then look, we've got this cold front that's going to surge through. We will see that surge of warm air ahead of it. And then the cold air and the warm air, what happens? When you get the clash of the two, you get thunderstorms. So look, a squall line is going to be developing along that front. It's going to get started right around the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and as it moves eastward, it could even produce severe weather. We're thinking mostly over South Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, and South Georgia, but there's going to be a marginal risk of severe weather where we could see heavy rain, gusty winds, hail, even a tornado cannot be ruled out. Now, that's going to be down towards the Gulf Coast, but it is possible that during the day Sunday, we could see stormy weather on one end of the state and accumulating ice on the other end of the state. It's a situation that has happened before, and it could happen again this Sunday. All right, now, let's talk about the cold air, because that's the second part of this. Look at how temperatures drop the farther north you go. We're down to 41 now in Jackson, but already in Little Rock and in Memphis, we're down into the low 20s. The core of the Arctic high is right across the Central Plains. We know that's where it is because the winds around high pressure flow in a clockwise fashion. We can kind of see them circulating around that point where the temperature is about 0 degrees in Omaha. But look north of Omaha, we're in negative territory as far south as Chicago. Right now in Chicago, it is 8 degrees below zero. And this is the air that cold front is going to pull down Sunday night, and it'll be here through Monday and Tuesday. Now, when it gets farther south, the air mass is going to moderate, and it won't be this cold, but it's going to be cold enough. We're looking at low temperatures in the mid-teens to low 20s. If you're thinking about record lows, it is not record low territory. Record lows for Jackson for the next several days are right around -5 to 1 degree. So thankfully, we're not going to be that cold. But it might feel like it's that cold because when you factor in the winds, we're expecting wind chills to be in the single digits by Monday morning. Now, Sunday morning, remember there's going to be that surge of warm air at ahead of the front. So look at the stark contrast between the Plain Belt, where it's going to feel like it's in the 60s Sunday, and in the Delta, where ice is likely going to be on the ground and wind chills are going to be in the 20s. Then, as the cold air overtakes the entire state, wind chills are going to be down into the single digits to low teens. 24 hours later, Tuesday morning, wind chills between 12 and 20 degrees. So, significant impacts with this winter storm. Dangerous cold is going to last for several days. The ice buildup will produce travel impacts, slick roads, of course, and there could be power outages. In fact, I think that is likely, especially as we go into the Delta. So, we got to be weather aware Saturday, weather alert Sunday because of the ice storm. Check out the temperature Sunday, below freezing all day. Then Monday, we're below freezing all day. Then Tuesday, we're down to 15 degrees. And then, yes, we do warm up above freezing, but that's not going to happen until about midday on your Tuesday. So any ice that's on the ground from the weekend is not going to have an opportunity to melt until we get to about Tuesday afternoon. So I can see a lot of cancellations happening on Monday with temperatures in the teens and 20s all day and ice on the ground. Now, the rest of next week, not much better, even though it's going to be sunny. Temperatures are going to be well below freezing each morning. Your high temperatures only in the lower to mid 40s. And then, unfortunately, look at next weekend. Here comes potentially another winter storm. Right now, we're painting this in as rain next Saturday, but there's an indication that there could be a wintry mix once again as we go through the last weekend of January. So this may be the first of a couple of winter storms that affect us before the month of January is out. All right, that's your update for tonight. We're going to be fully staffed through the weekend. In fact, we're going to be here giving you hourly updates starting Saturday morning through Monday morning. So that's all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and going into Monday morning as well. Tomorrow morning, meteorologist Megan Hanna is going to be here with your next update, and we will have hourly updates on air at the top of each hour. You can also see updates on WJTV Plus, and we're going to have updates on our radar every hour there as well, because we want to keep you informed about what's happening. One note, we do have the AFC Championship game Sunday. We're not going to break into the game, so you don't have to worry about that. We're going to let it run like it's supposed to run. If we have an opportunity, we may give you an update at halftime of that game, but we're not going to break into the game. And of course, we're going to have reporters out in the field, and we're going to have expanded newscast over the weekend, and we're going to have a weather show from 6 to 7 a.m. on your Sunday. So just keep that in mind. You can keep updated with the storm by watching WJTV on air and online and on WJTV Plus. And of course, continue to come back to this space on Facebook, on social media, on X, and we'll have updates there as well as we get them. All right, again, that's your update for tonight. Meteorologist Megan Hanna will be here in the morning. The rest of the weather team will be here over the weekend as well. Please stay safe this weekend. Stay indoors. Do not travel if you don't have to, because there is going to be black ice out there, and that is extremely dangerous. So just hunker down over the weekend, and eventually we're all going to get through this. All right, we will see you over the weekend.